Hey everyone, this is Jeff Risdon with the Detroit Lions podcast and Lions Wire, and it is time to do a Lions draft recap. Oh, we made it through the draft weekend. For those of us who cover the draft for a living, and I do that with Draft Wire, and this was the 22nd draft I've covered. It's always a slog to get through it. Saturday is one of those days where it's like, oh my God, I'm in zombie mode. But the power of the Lions drove me through because I like what they did in the draft. So let's get right into it. Let's do a Lions draft recap. Thank you all for joining here on the Detroit Lions podcast. I am doing this one solo because Chris and I, once again, are just our schedules are conflicting where we can't be available at the same time to do a live show. It's frustrating, I know. We are trying to make that work, hopefully sometime later this week. As I record this, it's Monday. I have finally gotten a little bit of sleep, which is nice. I need more. Yeah, it was a fun weekend. Start right at the top. Tyleik Williams, first-round pick, number 28 overall. He was the number 20 overall player on my board, so I am clearly predisposed to liking this pick. I love him as a prospect, and I love how he fits into Detroit. He reminds me so much as a prospect of Aleem McNeil when Aleem came out of North Carolina State. And he's a very big, agile, quick, very good athlete for a guy who's packing 320. I think he said in his press conference afterwards that he was at 327 last year at Ohio State. This guy's a ridiculous athlete. And the thing that I loved about him most, I like my first round picks, especially defensive players, like if they're a pass rusher, cornerback, whatever, to have a signature trait. For Tyleik Williams, his ability to strafe from gap to gap in the run game and avoid getting blocked and avoid getting moved out of where the offense doesn't want him to be was the best in this draft class. It's the best in the last few drafts. He's exceptional at it. He can still rush the passer. He got 5 sacks his freshman year at Ohio State. Ohio State wound up getting a lot of other guys that were a little bit better than him at rushing the passer on the inside. So they asked him to become the best run defender in the country. And you know what? With the possible exception of Alfred Collins out at Texas, who's quite a bit bigger than him, he was. I'm very excited for what he can do. He can fill in for Aleem while Aleem heals up from his knee surgery. And then you've got a happy problem in 2026 of having 2 Aleem McNeils. I like that. To be a little more serious about it, DJ Reader's gone after this year. Roy Lopez, 1-year deal. Levi Onwuzurike, 1-year deal. If you want to go a little bit deeper, Josh Paschal could be playing out the end of his thing. Not that Williams is going to play outside like that, but you can see some inverted line. Like, he's capable of doing those sorts of things. I'm curious what weight they want him to play at, but my goodness. This is a long-term fixture starter with upside to do more on the stat sheet than what he did at Ohio State, where he was surrounded by a lot of talent that just overwhelmed. Look, they won a national title for a reason. I know a lot of y'all Michigan fans are like, yeah, but he played like, y'all got to get past that, man. You just do. Great player. I think Lions fans are going to like this guy. He's engaging. He's intense. He's very quick-witted. From his post press conference after he got drafted, I was in the Lions media room that night. We did a Zoom with him, and he accidentally hung up on us. And he apologized and came back on, and it was he played it off very well. It wasn't like he was uptight or anything. It was cool. I like him a lot. It's a great pick. No complaints from me on that. Second round, let's go into Tate Ratledge. Mr. Mullet, Mr. Flo, got a giant tattoo of a lion on him already. Come on, this was predisposed to happen, right? The eastbound and down look is, it's not for me. He wears it very well, and it's how I want my offensive linemen to look. right guard, almost exclusively a right guard at Georgia. Played in a similar offensive blocking scheme. They did a little bit less zone than what the Lions did last year. The Lions quietly did a little bit more outside zone than they had in the past last season. We wonder how that's going to change with the new offensive coordinator, with John Morton coming in and Ben Johnson taking his talents to Chicago. By the way, Chicago taking Luther Burden is either a stroke of brilliance or it's going to sink them. And I don't know which, but it's going to be fun to watch that. The guy's got talent. He's also might not all be there up top in team competitiveness style. That's for Chicago. That's for another. We're going to talk about the other teams' drafts. I'm going to do that in a separate video for that. That leans more on like general draft stuff. But this one we're going to stick with the Lions. It's a need. They needed a right guard. Kevin Zeitler is in Tennessee right now. Christian Mahogany was certainly an interesting find last year. I loved him. You might recall I had a second-round grade on him last year. They got him in the 6th. I think he's going to be starting at one of the positions, and then I think right now that's probably left guard, which is where he played in the playoff game. Played pretty well. Started there, I believe it was week 18 as well. Looked fine to me. Looked promising enough that if I were to move one of them from right guard to left guard, Ratledge or Mahogany, it would be Mahogany. They both embrace being dirtbags. I like that. Hank Fraley's going to like that. The guys around him are going to like that. This is a guy who's done a lot of blocking for a quarterback in Carson Beck at Georgia, who's stylistically similar to the way that Jared Goff plays the quarterback position, i.e. he's a guy that you want him to have room to step up. You want to give him clearly defined room to move around in the pocket, even though he's not going to run from it. Like, Goff's pretty, I think we all agree, Goff is pretty good about manipulating himself around the pocket if he sees what's going to be coming to him. And you know, that's similar to the way Carson Beck was at Georgia. So would it have been my pick there? Probably not. I had other guys rated higher, other guys who went off the board very quickly thereafter. Doesn't mean I'm against the pick. Doesn't mean I dislike it. I think the Lions stuck true to their football culture, to their grit. They fit the grit mentality. You should trademark that. With a little TM next to that. You put that up there, Ash? TM? Doesn't hurt to try. I like him a lot. I do have some concerns about injury history. He had tightrope surgery at Georgia. That is it's a high ankle sprain reaction and prophylactic style move. Yeah, prophylactic, not used in the medical sense of the word here, in that they basically thread your tibia and fibula together, almost like a football lace, so it can't separate. The mechanism of a high ankle sprain is that the two bones of your shin, where they come together at your ankle, a high ankle sprain is when they start to separate. Well, the tightrope surgery, and a lot of Georgia guys have had it, most notably Brock Bowers, threads it together so it theoretically can't happen again. Now, for Amarius Mims, the Georgia tackle who went in last year's draft, he broke it. So it's still a cutting edge type thing. We don't have long-term data on how well it works. I'm sure Dr. Liao will talk more about that in an upcoming video, and I will certainly defer to him on that. But if you look up tightrope surgery, it's a pretty fun rabbit hole, like if you're into medical innovation and stuff like that. He did also miss all but one drive of 2021 with a foot problem. And I will say, from talking to people who covered him at Georgia, he did lose a little bit from that. So that's a little concerning, but you know, look, he fits fine. He's a good enough athlete. He can execute all the blocks that they have asked of Kevin Zeitler and Graham Glasgow before that, and you know, whoever's been at right guard. He can get it done. He will certainly compete to start. You know, we're going to jump to Miles Frazier next, even though he wasn't technically the next draft pick, because he fits into this equation as well. Miles Frazier from LSU, also a right guard, 2-year starter at right guard at LSU. Yeah, he plays the same position. Yes, they have 4 guys on the offensive line who are all best at right guard. That's a little odd. Not necessarily troublesome. It's just odd. It doesn't mean that they can't move some of these guys around. And Graham Glasgow has proven that he can play center. He's proven that he can play left guard. When he's healthy, he's capable still. Don't think he was super healthy at the end of last season. I think he got worn down. I do agree with the folks who screamed that, he was better at right guard than left guard. Yes, he was. But I think you're looking at your backup interior top offensive lineman in 2025. And then I think you're going to see Miles Frazier take that role over in 2026. Or if he can do it sooner, you can save a little bit of money by getting rid of Graham Glasgow. Maybe another team wants to trade for him. It would be very minimal compensation, probably a sliding scale 6th, 7th based on reps and if he makes a team and things like that. Similar to the way that the Lions acquired Donovan Peoples-Jones a couple years ago. That's the trade level you would expect, or at least I would expect from it. One of the things that I like about Frazier, and there's a couple things here. First off, he played left tackle. He was actually the freshman All-American tackle in 2021, and I saw him play in person. Didn't realize that till after the draft. Don't remember it. Don't remember watching him specifically. But he played for Florida International. He was their starting left tackle. They played in Mount Pleasant at Central Michigan that year. I went. I believe it was raining that night. Like I go to too many games, college games and MACtion games to know and keep them all straight. But it shows that he's got that, like, he played tackle at a high enough level that he was considered the best freshman left tackle in the country, playing for a non-power 4-5 at that time school. Tells you a little bit about what he's about. Second thing that I like about Miles Frazier comes from LSU. LSU had 4 dudes on the offensive line all drafted this year. They called themselves the Bomb Squad. They held themselves accountable. They pushed themselves, i.e., he's going to come in and he understands what it's like to have those expectations and standards and to be held to a standard by his peers as well as his coaches. That's not going to faze him. That has fazed some other people. One in particular who probably isn't going to be a Lion for much longer. I am very bullish about that. The fact that they got him in the 5th round, it's right around where I had him ranked. It's actually a little bit low, but look, when you're getting into that range, look, they traded to get him. They traded a couple of picks. They didn't have enough roster spots to fit all those guys. Why not move up and target a guy who's going to be a potential long-term starter if all goes well? If not, you have drafted at least a guy who can be, and when they start cross-training him at center, and it seems like that's what's going to happen, both Brad and Miles himself intimated as much in their press conferences after the draft. They get themselves a guy who could also maybe play a little bit of right tackle. This is a younger, cheaper version of Coyote Aushika. I think we can get behind that. Again, 5th round. If it doesn't work for whatever reason, okay, swing and a miss. I think his floor is high enough that he's not going to bust. I'm not sure that he has like super high levelness. He doesn't move super well. He tends to play a little bit too high. So there are warts to his game that Hank Fraley is going to have to work with, the superb offensive line coach in Detroit. But there's a lot to work with there too, and he's mature. He's going to get it. Interesting one. Wasn't what I expected there since they had already taken one, but my mind's open on that. There were a couple of other guys that I certainly would have taken there, but again, I don't know if they fit the grid or not. I had a pretty good idea that they did, but I didn't know that. Just from absorbing what I have about Frazier in the aftermath of him being drafted, yeah, he fits the grid. So, decent enough. Let's go back to the 3rd round pick, Isaac Tesla. Tough to be objective on this one, honestly. I am sitting here. I live in Zeeland, Michigan. He's from Hudsonville. We share a border. I've watched him play. I've actually I covered him playing quarterback for a Wing T state champ team at Unity Christian in high school. I covered him playing basketball, leading the Crusaders to a state title the same year as a defense-first, pesky, annoying, opposing crowds hated him combo guard, small forward. Like Coach Sotzman knows what the hell he's doing. We won't get into the West Michigan basketball discussion, but he was incredibly well coached in high school in both football and basketball at a program that has very high standards and expects to win every time they step on the court or field. He's used to that sort of pressure. He went to Hillsdale to start. It's where his dad played wide receiver. He learned how to play a little wide receiver there. Went to Arkansas, spent 2 years there, and I will tell you, Arkansas didn't know what they had. He's a 6'4", 215-pound guy, very physically and athletically similar to Nico Collins when Nico Collins was at Michigan. Obviously, Nico Collins didn't play in the slot. That's where Arkansas put him because it was easier to scheme him open. Because the biggest thing that Isaac Tesla has to learn is how to get off the line and get open quickly, because that's not something that he does very well yet. Ceiling is there. It's way the hell up there, man. He's an incredible athlete. Great athlete, very good hands, very secure. He knows how to block. He's aggressive. He wore a Lions jersey that he had from when he was a kid to his Lions visit. That tells you how important it is for him, how much this is a dream. I did his combine interview. We as members of the PFWA, we're assigned, or we get to pick who we get to transcribe interviews for. I chose Isaac Tesla. I stood in front of him for 15 minutes. I asked him probably 3/4 of the questions that were asked in it. This is a dream for him. He is the type of person who is driven to make that dream come true. Like that, the dream is just now kicking into a different realm. It's not the dream yet. It's not over. He's not going to wake up from this. He's not going to be like, "Oh my God, I made it! I'm getting, I think it's $2.94 million for where his draft range is." No, he's going to keep working at it. Immediately on the team, he is your number 4 receiver, maybe number 5, with opportunity to move his way up. But long term, Tim Patrick, expiring contract. Khalif Raymond, expiring contract. Tom Kennedy, practice squad. Fluffy Tom. He's wide receiver 3 by default next year. That's where the trading comes in. They traded 102 and 2 third-rounders next year. They have their own third-rounder plus the third-rounder that they will get as a compensatory pick for Aaron Glenn being hired by the Jets. By the way, go AG. I am still rooting for you. And I think that most Lions fans still view him very endearingly. I hope I'm not wrong on that take. John's a little different, but there's circumstances behind that. But it's a lot to move up for a guy who caught, I think, 58 passes at Arkansas in 2 years. Now, again, Arkansas didn't know what they had. There was not a well quarterbacked team. I don't think it was necessarily a well offensively coached team. And they did have some talent on the outside. I get it. I think he's going to be the Tim Patrick replacement long term as a big outside wide receiver, a guy who can be more than a possession receiver, even though he's built like a possession receiver. Nico Collins has become that with the Texans. I think Isaac Tesla's ceiling is being Nico Collins in Detroit. If you've watched the Texans at all, you're probably drooling now because that guy's become a really good receiver, given good quarterback play, given a defined role, and given an offense that plays to his strengths. And I think Isaac Tesla can learn those things. He will compete on special teams right away. That competitive fire is in him. Trading up. This is where everybody gets hung up. And I get it. Trust me, y'all, I get it. It's a lot to give up for a guy that was 171 on the consensus big board that my good friend Arif Hassan runs at wide left. It's an aggregation of 112 different draft analyst big boards. Mine's one of them. Arif is very good about sending out like superlatives, like where each of us individually were high or low on a player. I was the second highest analyst on Isaac Tesla. I don't know who was first, but I had him. I think he was 106 for me. I don't have that information right in front of me, but I was pretty high on him. 71 or 70, step up from that. And like, there's a lot of people who are like, well, the crux of the discussion here has to be, would he have been available at 102? I don't think so. I don't know that. Like, I have been trying to get with as many sources from teams as I can about like how they felt about him. And the closest thing that I got to like, yeah, we probably would have taken him was in the 90s. So look, did they go get their guy a little early? Maybe. Okay. They got their guy. That's the important part. That's what you need to focus on. They identified him as being worthy of giving all that up to go get him. Who might have judged that? Because most draftniks didn't see him that way. They see the potential. They didn't. The other side of that coin is, who would they have taken had they not moved up? Somebody that they weren't as excited about. That's what that move tells you, was that they weren't enthused about the coming options. And remember, a couple of guys that all of us collectively in Lions Land thought that they really liked had just gone off the board. Did they get a little antsy about that? Maybe they did. Okay. They were proactive in going to get a guy that they really liked, and they saw more valuable than any option that they would have been able to get had they waited it out or even waited a few picks to trade. Generally speaking, that's a good strategy. Identify your guy. In most situations, not all, but when most of the time when a good team trades up for a guy, it's generally heralded as a pretty good idea. Like, oh, this is a team they've drafted really well. They've developed players really well. They like this guy's potential. Yeah, yes, it's a lot to give up. It's a strain to say that we're not going to have our third-round picks next year. We didn't have a third-round pick this year. He's on the team already. It's Giovanni Manu. They drafted him in the fourth round last year. They traded the third round up to get him. We're going to talk at length about Manu down the road because he is a massive variable. And when I was in the press room on Thursday night before the draft started, we had a small group conversation about Giovanni Manu and what to expect. And we were all like, well, yeah, because we've not seen him. Very curious about what happens with Manu. The hope, collectively and individually for me, is that he will be our swing tackle this year. Don't know that that's going to happen. Don't know if he's not going to play guard. Although I think the way that they loaded up on guards in this draft, and the way that they still have other folks there, they're certainly weaker at tackle than they are at guard. And when you're the size of Manu and move the way he does, you put him at tackle until he proves that he can't do it. That's my philosophy anyways. I kind of think that Hank Fraley sees it that way too. Let's move on. Ahmed Hussain. I said it terribly. So, those of you who watch religiously, thank you, first of all. You might remember my pre-draft final mock. I had him going in the 7th round. I botched his name something fierce, man. And a couple people called me out on it. And by the way, in a good manner. Like, if I say that badly, I deserve to be corrected. Idaho Sign Boss on X, you gently corrected me. You told me how to say it properly, and I thank you for that. I gave you your credit because you said you will need to know it because they're taking him the next night. You sent that to me on Friday. Sir, you were correct. I tip my hat to you. Good job. This is a guy, oh my God, he fits the grid. He's a developmental style football player. He didn't know what football was until like 5 years ago. 6 years ago. Born in California, moved to Egypt. You all know the story. He was the top CrossFit athlete in Africa. Like, okay, that's so random. Comes back to America. It's like, oh, football. This looks fun. He's also a mixed martial artist and knows martial arts and knows a bunch of like different ways that he can probably kill us all in our sleep, which I think is simultaneously really cool and really scary. But you kind of want that in a guy who's going to be attacking offensive linemen. Technically, like in terms of hand usage, hand, foot, shoulder, hip coordination, and alignment, there's a lot of work to do here. New offensive or defensive line coach Casey Rogers has got some work to do. The attitude is there. The fact that he talks about he loves agitating the opposing offensive linemen to try to get them off their game and to piss them off. Yeah, give me that. I can work with that. He gets to learn under Aiden Hutchinson and Marcus Davenport. Look, is he going to play a lot as a rookie? I doubt it. I'm willing to be pleasantly surprised there, but this is a 6th-round pick. If he squeezes into the roster, and I hope that he does, it's a good sign that they are. Look, he and Tesla both are developmental players. Tyleek, not a developmental player. Anybody tells you that he's a developmental player, they've not watched him. He can develop more, but he is not a developmental player. Ahmed, developmental player. Get him in, get him coaching, see what he can do. Now let's move on to Dirty Dan Jackson, Georgia safety. I don't know if that's his technical nickname, but I will tell you, when Chris and I were at the Senior Bowl, Dan Jackson made a hit of questionable legality along the sidelines right in front of Chris. I was watching the other end of the field. The defensive linemen were down there. That's who I was scouting that day. And Chris texts me and he's like, "Did you see that?" And I said, "I heard it." He's like, "That's a lion." There's a guy who ran well out of. He was there to make an impression that he was a physical presence at safety. He accomplished that mission. His game tape is underwhelming. I don't know that he's better than Maurice Norris or Lauren Strickland as a safety. Special teams. Lions drafted Sione Vaki last year. Yeah, you can call him a running back. Okay. He's special teams. He was that draft's gift to Dave Phipp. Dan Jackson is this year's draft gift to Dave Phipp, the special teams coordinator for the Lions. And that's his path to making the 53-man roster. I don't think that he is capable of doing what Ifeatu Melifonwu did in that third safety role. I think Avonte Maddox is much more likely to play that role, or you have Brian Branch slide into that role and Maddox be your third safety. They were training him on that in Philly because he lost a step at corner. We'll see how that plays out. That's something to watch in camp. But Jackson brings a lot of energy, a lot of hustle, a lot of intensity. And then the last guy, Dominic Lovett, another Georgia guy. Brad talked about it, about his affinity for just locking on and easy to like Georgia. Look, he lived in Atlanta when he was a scout. Obviously knows the program very well. Loading up on good players from good college teams seems like a good idea. Because there's and I mentioned this with Frazier, with the offensive linemen. There's a pressure there to perform, to be held to a standard. Alabama players have the same thing. They understand how to handle that pressure coming in. Where if you're coming from Fresno State, my Ohio Bobcats, as an example, although we're trying, like we're not that program. And I think that's something that to be said for that. Lovett transferred from Missouri. He's kind of a niche player. I'm hopeful that he shows a lot early in camp, because I am afraid that he's a guy that will get a little bit left behind because he's not the most physical guy. I don't know. Look, if you're arguing about a 7th round pick, you probably need to step back and just okay, there's not an open roster spot for this player to begin with. It's one of those where they're taking a chance on a guy who impressed their coaches on the whiteboard, who impressed them as maybe he can contribute on special teams. I think Brad said a lot about special teams and how important they were for the day 3 prospects in particular in his post-draft press conference. He talked about it being not even like a tiebreaker, but it blows away the concept of the tie. Like they will take a better special teams player than a better receiver in that role. Like that's where they're at. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but that's basically what he said. And that's sort of the way that Vaki attracted the team. By the way, that's how Antoine Green got on the team, because he was a mother on special teams, and they loved that. And they liked his upside and potential as a wide receiver, but they knew that they could count him on special teams early, and he proved to be that way. That's good. So, look, low expectations. I'll love it. If he can make it and stick on the practice squad as a rookie, I think mission accomplished. And if he does more than that, yes, that's good. I want to talk a little bit also about just like the overarching draft strategy, i.e., till the 6th round, relax. Not in the Aaron Rodgers condescending relax, but in the let's look at what we've got. Aiden Hutchinson's coming back. Was the Defensive Player of the Year runaway leader when he got hurt. Marcus Davenport's back. Okay, yeah, I get that one. For 4 games. Any more than that's gravy. But a really good schematic fit for what we want. And I'll go back to my final mock draft where I had Donovan Ezra-Raku from Boston College projected to the Lions. And he would have represented a deviation from their norm at the position. And I was excited at the prospect of having that, because I don't want to just run back what we had. I want certain things to be different. And I like the idea of adding speed and dynamic athleticism more at the edge position. In the way that James Houston was as a rookie, but better. Ezra-Raku certainly would have been that. But the Lions didn't see it that way. They valued Tyleik more. And I do too. He's a better prospect. Was much, much higher rated on my own board, and obviously was on Detroit's board as well. I think one of the things that we do, and I actually talked about this today in the Patreon Slack for the Detroit Lions podcast here. And by the way, get in there. We've had some great conversations lately. Gray's been involved. We had really good like debate, not like hostility, not personal, but like talking football and arguing a point from your point of view, listening to the other side, and probably still disagreeing, but at least understanding with a level of respect, which is not what we get on social media anymore, which is why I'm on there less and less all the time. But the point I made is I think we collectively as Lions media, and I also think the Lions in a little bit are somewhat culpable of this, we forget about Derek Barnes. And look at how much they paid him to come back, and look at what they've done at his position, i.e., nothing else. They're paying him to be a pass rusher, y'all. Then, if you're paying your number 2, number 3 off-ball linebacker what they're paying Derek Barnes, you can't recoup that. He's not worth that. As a Sam, I'll go back to this. Lions were the number 1 defense in football when he got hurt. In the time between when he got hurt and when Aiden Hutchinson got hurt, they fell from 1st to 5th. Like, there was that steep already. They missed him. He's back. And they have told you by how much they're paying him, by how much or how little they've done to reinforce his position, they have really high expectations for him. And I do too. I think he can be second on this team in sacks. It's not unquestionable for me to project him to get 10 sacks this year. That's high end. That's best case scenario. Absolutely. But I think you're going to see, because we have a linebacker in Kelvin Shepard, NFL linebacker, as a defensive coordinator, he's going to understand a little bit more than Aaron Glenn did as a defensive back throughout his career of how to maybe deploy the linebackers, how to push them a little bit. And that's nothing against, like, AG's a great defensive coach, but he saw things through a defensive back's eyes. Kelvin Shepard sees it through a linebacker's eyes. And I think that subtle change could play a little bit of a difference, and Derek Barnes is the perfect weapon for that. So I'm not going to get stressed out by the fact that they didn't draft Ezeraku or didn't draft JC Tuimoloau or my guy Femi Oladejo or my real guy Ashton Jalate, who I loved and would have been great in Detroit, but he's not here. They didn't see him that way. That's fine. I'm still going to root for the guy because I loved him, but when he's playing against Detroit, he's the enemy. I'm happy with the players that we got. They're happy with the direction that they took. And we are not privy, as much as seasoned as I am, as many contacts as I've made over the 20 plus years that I've been doing this with draft people. You got to have faith in what they're telling you. And you got to learn how to read. Brad Holmes has been very transparent, and it gets misinterpreted as cockiness, arrogance, being drunk on his own juices. There's probably a little bit of that. I think he'd probably even acknowledge that. But his larger point is they're not looking for positions, so they're looking for players. And if they fit a position that happens to be higher up on the needs scale as the team sees it, all the better. But they're not going to force it. And the fact that they didn't view guys like Jalate, guys like Oladejo, guys, Jack Sawyer came later. There's a couple other guys that I'm trying to think of who were available for them to take at one of their spots, and they passed on them. That means both that they value the players that they took, whether it's Ratledge or Tesla, that much more, or maybe they didn't see them that way. They didn't evaluate them the same way that I did. I wouldn't expect them to. They have access to a lot more than I do, a lot more than any of us who do this for a living do. And we have to have faith in that. Now, there are some times where we get things right and they're wrong. Not many with Brad Holmes. But there are plenty of times where the consensus group is better. And to refer you again to wide left, my friend Arif Hassan does this, and he tallies up where the consensus is better than the NFL. And there's been a lot of instances of that. We hope that that's not the case with the players that the Lions took here and took that were somewhat unpopular picks, and primarily that's Tesla. I think most people understood that the need was there for a guard for both the short and long term. And while Ratledge might not have been the preferred guy for everyone, and myself included on that, he certainly fits. And I think we're pretty bullish about that. And then doubling up at guard with Frazier, or even just doubling up on offensive line and not taking an edge there, not taking a safety higher there, not taking a corner, not taking a linebacker. I know there are some of you out there who want them to take a quarterback. Look, had they taken Curtis Rourke, my guy from Indiana who started at Ohio, go Bobcats, I wouldn't have complained. I don't know who would make the team, but I wouldn't complain. But that's not what they're looking for. So I think, and this is why I don't do draft grades, because I'm not privy to the boards of all 32 teams. I don't know exactly how they viewed the guys. I'm not arrogant enough to think that my board is 100% correct. I'm going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. I try to make as few as possible. They get paid a lot more to make fewer than I do. And hopefully Bradham's been pretty good at that. I'm happy about that. So when they're not addressing things, they're telling you in who they're not taking as much as they are who they're taking. And that means that they might not agree with the consensus that Jack Sawyer should have been their pick where they took Isaac TeSlaa. They didn't see it that way. I didn't either, by the way. But that's something to remember, to file away, that their board is not based on immediate need. If anything, they're looking a year out, 2 years out. And that's one of the big themes that I took from this draft is about 2026 and beyond. Yeah, Tyleek's going to play a lot. He might wind up starting a lot, especially if Aleem isn't back until November, which is probably the worst case scenario. And after last year, we have to acknowledge that the worst case scenario could happen. If you remember last summer, somebody asked me what my biggest worry about this team was, and I said existential dread about injuries. Well, damn it, it happened. I'm praying to God it doesn't happen again, because that was not fun, because this was a team that could have absolutely won the Super Bowl. They were the best team in football when they were healthy, but they just ran out of dudes, man. So if that doesn't happen again. But I'm overall, look, I don't do the draft grades. I would be pretty bullish on this Lions group. I think they did a very good job for their team. Are there points of contention? Yes. Do I have names written down that would have been my picks at these spots? Yes, I do. And I will keep those to myself, but I will be following those other players' careers and trying to see if I was right on them. Doesn't mean that the Lions were wrong in passing on them either, but look, we all want to be right about stuff. And, that's, as an evaluator, that's what I try to do. And I'm hopeful that, I loved Tyleek. I loved TeSlaa. Was a big fan of Ahmed. I like what they got going with Miles. I think Ratledge, where they got him, was a little earlier than I would have expected him to go, but that's certainly not a reach. It's a good draft class. It's going to help this team some in 2025, but a lot in 2026 and beyond. Window stays open. Not sure it got more open with this draft, but it certainly stays open. And one other little thing about the draft and coverage of it. First off, I'm so freaking sick of Shadur Sanders. So happy I don't cover the Browns anymore. My hometown team. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, you drafted. Oh, do like the Mason Graham trade. I'm going to do a separate video about the entire draft, but as it relates to doing grades and stuff like that, remember, most of these people are evaluating, and I know a lot of these people, and I'm friends with a lot of these people. I trust a lot of these people and their evaluations. They don't know, they're not experts on Detroit, just as it would be disingenuous for me to give a grade to Arizona or Seattle, though I do like what Seattle did, or the Jets, or the Falcons, who I have no clue what they're trying to do, but they have their own motivations for it. I don't know what those are. I can only guess at it from afar and talk to people who I think have a better idea of it, and I try to do as much of that as I can, but I'm not going to know that. And so I wouldn't worry much about what other people on the outside who don't understand the team, their opinions shouldn't matter to you. If you're angry about it, ignore them. They're not important. Doesn't matter. Trust the guys who know the team a little bit better. I think most of us collectively in Lions media land have a pretty good idea of what they've done. And I think for the most part, we all are pretty satisfied with what they did. And hopefully we all will be too as this offseason rolls forward into rookie minicamp, the schedule reveal. Yeah. Minicamp, training camp. By the way, that was the other one little tidbit that I wanted to get in here. I was sorting through the mental Rolodex in my head, and I finally got to it. Lions get an extra preseason game this year. They're playing in the Hall of Fame game. That's awesome. That is, you will not see any players who played in a regular season game last year play in that game. It is all for the development. You will see Giovanni Manu play that entire freaking game, and that's fantastic. It's an extra time where he gets to go against somebody not in his own uniform. It's great for guys that are developmental, like Kingsley Agokun, like Trevor Nowaski is who I was thinking of as the backup Sam. It's his chance to shine and show that he's grown some. Isaac Ukwu, Lauren Strickland, who I talked about a little earlier. Like that game is for those guys and for these rookies and for any of the undrafted rookies who happen to latch on. As of now, I would tell you that probably none of them have a strong chance of making it, just because last year's UDFA class was really good, and this team is really good. They've got depth. They signed guys like Avonte Maddox and Grant Stewart, who are going to fill roles that would normally be filled by undrafted free agents, and that makes it that much tougher for UDFA to crack it. So We'll see who gets through rookie minicamp and then talk about them. But I'm very excited about the Hall of Fame game where they're going to be playing against the Chargers as Antonio Gates gets inducted. That game is played on the home stadium high school field of Group 1 Chris Spielman. I am blessed that a very dear friend of mine and my wife's, who we lived with in college for 2 years, lives within walking distance. So I will be there. I hope to see you all there. It's a great trip. Please, if you can get there, go. It's a great chance to see football history, to get to absorb the team. You might be walking through the Hall of Fame, and John Dorsey might be walking next to you. Jared Goff could be behind you. Derek Barnes could be looking at the linebackers. That's how that kind of stuff cool. It's a great opportunity to get it. So if you can get to Canton, Ohio, not Canton, Michigan, skip IKEA, go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It'll be worth your trip. I know it's in Ohio, and I know that bothers a lot of you. Still got to get over that. With that, thanks for watching, y'all. Go Lions.